All right. What about as we pivot our attention to the SEC? Will Cocktober rear its head as Ole Miss travels to Columbia to play South Carolina in the same spot where South Carolina gave LSU all it had and kind of choked it away? You know, a lot of bad mistakes from the Gamecocks right there. You had to deal with Lenora Sellers getting a little bit banged up. Lenora Sellers maybe back, expected to play.
Yeah, according to Beamer.
Ole Miss, here's the thing that stands out to me. I thought that Kentucky kind of whipped Ole Miss's offense up front. And I think South Carolina, like Kentucky, however flawed they might be offensively, they cause a fight at the line of scrimmage with their defensive line. And so I think that the issues that Ole Miss had with Kentucky are still issues that could play a role in this game against South Carolina. Now, on the vibe side, we've got a Jackson Dart called a meeting.
Did he?
A house meeting, y'all.
Did he switch the hoodie out?
This is see
this?
He might have had his Tebow speech moment. All right, like this. You've never seen anybody work harder than Jackson Dart for the rest of the season. But what? How do you see this one, bud?
So I agree that Kentucky largely whipped Ole Miss up front physically, but they also did a really good job of confusing Ole Miss's blocking stuff up front. Like they got some free runners that were not just physically whipping. So I know Ole Miss is like, hey, we got to be better at handling some of these twists and stunts and whatnot. Like we're not great, but we have to be better in terms of how clean our operation is and how good our communication is. You know what? South Carolina is pretty good at that. Mm-hmm. They got to LSU's protections really well. I was impressed. By the way, the graphic on this is wrong. It's Ole Miss 9.5, not 3.5. If it was 3.5, I would fake like I'm going to throw up like Tom and then go like quad bet this. Tom really threw up. I would fake it in order to go bet. Okay. So look, I think where South Carolina is different is that they're probably similar to what Kentucky is at corner. I do think Kentucky has like some draftable guys at safety. And that was important in the way they defended Ole Miss. I don't know that South Carolina is quite as good there as Kentucky is. So that may allow Ole Miss to get more explosive plays here. Also, like Kentucky offensively, there were a lot of plays that went their way, and they still only scored 20 points. Ole Miss defense, I think, is pretty good. So how many points does South Carolina need to win this ball game?
Oh, I think they've got to get to 28.
At least.
That's hard, man, for this offense, unless they get a lot of turnovers. I mean, LSU's defense is hot garbage, and what did they score on them?
33, right?
And that was with the punt block?
What's interesting to me, just a fun little factoid about this game, because we know about like Lane and Scripps and how good they are to start games. Ole Miss so far this season is averaging 6.2 points per drive on its opening possession of the game, which ranks second nationally only behind Army, who is averaging 7 points per drive on their opening possession of the game. South Carolina is yet to allow a point on the opponent's opening drive of the game so far this season. So you might have a decent idea of how this one's going to go on the very first drive. If Ole Miss marches down the field and scores, probably going to be a blowout. If they don't, we might have ourselves a game.
South Carolina wants to rock fight this in the worst way. Chip, I think you're probably right that they need 28. Like if they get 28, I feel like they could probably win the game.
Also, and look, apparently they went 0-4 in October last year. People are trying to throw me off the scent. That's exactly when you're due. Okay. This is when it happens. This is when we throw it down. A special teams or a defensive touchdown just seems to be in the cards here.
Also, Ole Miss has not had their bye week yet, and South Carolina is coming off their bye week, so they're one of the few teams that has not yet had a bye. Look, there's a lot you can argue for, but ultimately, can South Carolina score points? Because Ole Miss's defense is real. It's kind of like Kentucky's defense in terms of quality, I think. And shoot, you could tell me it's better than Kentucky's defense. I don't know how many points they can actually score in this one.